Welcome to Pavonars, webinars for the pavement community. My name is Andrew Braham, and today we'll be talking about the influence of time after crushing for cold in-place recycling on compaction and raveling. And this is continued work done by Bowie, previously Yeung, and it's a presentation based on her master's thesis research, which includes the influence of time after crushing for cold in place recycling on compaction and raveling. And I'm very happy to say that this is the third publication that she produced while she was with my research group here at the University of Arkansas. And she graduated with her Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering in 2015 and her Master's of Science in Civil Engineering in 2017. And her LinkedIn profile can be found here, Erica Bowie. Just a quick recap of what is cold in place recycling. So this is a picture of a full cold in place recycling train moving away from the photographer. So going from left to right, you have the asphalt paver, which is placing the final product. Immediately in front of that is the pug mill mixer, which mixes the reclaimed asphalt pavement and any sort of additives and stabilizing agents and extra water. The equipment labeled C is the screen and crusher, and that processes and sizes the reclaimed asphalt pavement. D is the milling machine itself, so this is what takes up the reclaimed asphalt pavement. And then E are the various binding agent trucks. So in this picture, we actually have a little bit of Portland cement being placed down. We have asphalt emulsion, and then we also have water being added. So for this research of particular interest is what is happening in the milling machine itself. Well, a milling machine for cold in place recycling mills the bound layer to form reclaimed asphalt pavement, or RAP, and it mixes the water, the stabilizing agent, which in this case is asphalt emulsion, and any sort of additives. And then there is additional grinding that occurs in the milling chamber as the milling head rotates. And these processes brought up two key questions. One, if a longer train is used, does the additional time impact the mixing of the asphalt emulsion and the RAP? And two, does the time of compaction matter on any type of CIR train? So these two key questions we attempted to answer following these research objectives. First, we wanted to evaluate the time after crushing, the aggregate type, and the asphalt emulsion type on two factors, CIR compaction metrics and a CIR raveling test. And we did that by looking at 2 emulsions, 3 aggregate types, and 4 times after crushing levels. And you can see here in this image, this is another CIR paving train, but a much shorter one. Again, on the left is the paver. In the middle is the milling machine, and there is no screen or crushing unit or pug mill mixer. And then on the right is the asphalt emulsion feed truck. So a quick review of the SGC or Super Paved Gyratory Compactor CIR compaction metrics. You can see we can measure the height versus the number of gyrations, and this gives us the GCI CIR, which is the Gyratory Compactability Index. We also have the density versus the number of gyrations, and this gives us the WEI CIR, which is the Workability Energy Index, and the CEI CIR, which is the Compactability Energy Index. And then finally, if we plot the density again versus number of gyrations, we can get the CDI, which is the Compaction Densification Index for cold in place recycling. There were a couple of other compaction metrics we explored. The N76 is the number of gyrations required to reach 76% maximum density. And the locking point is the second gyration, N, of 2 consecutive gyrations of the same height. And this was not used because we found with cold in place recycling, we got relatively poor consistency on these readings. Also of note, the CEI here could not be used because we used the mixed design of 30 gyrations. That's a benefit and a disadvantage of these compaction metrics. The benefit is we had to make samples for the Raveling test, and while we were physically making the samples, we were able to capture all of these compaction metrics. However, the CEI could not be used because you can see in that upper right-hand graph, we needed to get to 88% maximum density or 88% density, and that just simply didn't happen. We were compacting to 30 gyrations. So this is an overview of the compaction metrics, and now we'll take a look at the materials that were used after we look at the Raveling test. So the Raveling test followed ASTM D7196, and in brief, you take 2100 grams of wrap, you add 2% water, and you mix for 60 seconds. You then add your 3.5% asphalt emulsion and mix for 60 seconds, and you compact to a 70 millimeter height. You cure that compacted sample for 4 hours at 25 degrees Celsius. Then you run the Raveling test for 15 minutes, which is that hose abrading the surface of the sample for 15 minutes, and then you simply calculate the mass loss. So with the compaction metrics and the Raveling test reviewed briefly, we can now look at what materials were used. And the materials we used were reclaimed asphalt pavement, which include wrap from the field and included lab-generated limestone and cyanide wrap. And I encourage you to take a look at the May 23rd, 2021 Pavinar, which is entitled Evaluation and Compaction of Laboratory-Produced Recycling Asphalt Pavement in Cold in Place Recycling. This is another paper that was written by Erica, and it's a really great article explaining how we generated lab-produced wrap. So I really enjoyed working with Erica on that paper, and I encourage you to check out the webinar. But for this study, we used field wrap and then lab wrap, limestone-based and cyanide-based. We also looked at two types of asphalt emulsion. We looked at a proprietary cationic medium set emulsion, or proprietary CMS, and we looked at a commodity CMS. And then we looked at 4 different levels of time after crushing. So we mixed samples immediately after crushing, we mixed samples 1 hour after crushing, 1 day after crushing, and 1 week after crushing. And the whole intent was to see if some sort of charge was built up on the wrap during crushing, and if the asphalt emulsion somehow interacted with that charge. So how did these 3 parameters influence the SGC CIR metrics and Raveling? Well, let's start with looking at just simply the air voids. So we need to make the samples for the Raveling test. And we expected that as the time after crushing increased, we expected a decrease in air voids. And that's because we thought the materials would be less reactive. And if the materials were less reactive, we expected the emulsion to break more slowly. And this would create easier compaction. But as you can see, that did not occur. Some trends that did occur, however, was the proprietary emulsion broke more quickly than the commodity emulsion, and the field wrap had the lowest air voids of the 3 different types of wrap. But the final shape, if anything, was a little bit more in the shape of a parabola with a minimum value sometime between 1 hour and 1 day. And this kind of got us thinking that is there some sort of optimal time between mixing and crushing that can occur for asphalt emulsion? And we further explored this with the Superpave Gyratory Compactor CIR compaction metrics, and it was difficult to see trends with the aggregate type or time after crushing for the GCI, the WEI, and the CDI CIR. But as you can see on the graph to the right, the N76 had similar trends to the air voids. It had a parabolic shape, and again, this indicates that perhaps there may be some sort of optimal time that occurs between 1 hour and 1 day for mixing the asphalt emulsion with the CIR. Now, all that being said, no one compaction parameter showed a significance for all parameters, and that's a significance with a 95% confidence, and only N76 was significant for aggregate, emulsifier, and crushing time. Now for the Raveling test, we expected to see an increase of Raveling over time, because a decreased reactivity would indicate a slower break and therefore higher raveling. Now, before we get to those results, the field wrap showed the lowest raveling of the three wrap types, whereas the cyanite showed the highest. And overall, we felt that the actual trend was an opposite. We saw a decrease of raveling over time. Now, that being said, only the aggregate type was significant at a 95% confidence level. So in conclusion, what we were looking for in this work was, does the wrap change as it sits over time? Does the charge on the wrap decrease after the wrap is crushed? And we anticipated that the reactivity would decrease over time, and this would cause the asphalt emulsion to break more slowly. And really the only CIR compaction metric that showed any sort of reasonable results was the N76, which showed that parabolic shape. And it's worth noting that the Raveling test only saw the aggregate type as significant. So the main conclusion from all of this is that we felt that the 4-hour cure time before the Raveling test may have masked any sort of influence of time after crushing or asphalt emulsion type. So we found quite a few interesting things, we believe, but we do believe that there are other factors that need to be more fully explored. So this was just a brief overview of this paper. The full paper is available through the Transportation Research Record with the full citation found there. And then the DOI link can be found in the section below, the comments section below. So I appreciate you joining me today and hope you have a wonderful day.